For miles, Sen could only see an ocean of grass from his perch on a dead tree. The wind ripped through the grass that was taller than he was, creating an endless pasture as far as the eye could see. The entire plain looked empty and serene, but Sen knew the truth. Somewhere out there lurked dangerous creatures, delighted for a chance to tear Sen to shreds. Sen could hear something rustling from behind him, some 30 feet away. The grass was jerked and twisted as something massive cut straight across the field. Suddenly, the grass stopped moving and a barbaric shriek ripped across the sea of grass. A lightning mantis! Everyone in Steel Armor Shelter knew better than to try and brave the Zephyr Valley. The tall grass made it impossible for people to see the lightning mantids until their razor-sharp claws were already slicing open their skin. Even though they were only primitive creatures, even the greatest warriors knew better than to venture too far into the valley. But to Sen, this valley was the perfect place to help him kick off his experiment with the black crystal. With only an alloy blade in his repertoire, Sen needed prey he could easily capture and bring back to his room in God's shelter. Once he caged it, he could quickly evolve it into a mutant creature and sell its meat for quite a decent price, making him much closer to paying off his family's debt. Summoning his golden beetle armor, Sen stepped into the tall grass. I need to be careful with this armor. It didn't take much to overexert myself when I was chasing down the primitive greenscale lizard. If I do that with a lightning mantis, there's a chance that I might end up on the wrong side of their claws, or even worse, without a lightning mantis to evolve. After his scuffle with the evolved primitive greenscale lizard, Sen was now closer to learning the full extent of his newly acquired strength. Although it was exciting to have these new tools, it also meant he needed to test the limits of his own power. He'd have to be especially careful with his attacks, or he might end up clobbering all the creatures he came across. Slipping through the grass, Sen walked confidently, ready to take on the creature, but to his surprise, the creature found him much faster than he anticipated. A shriek echoed across the plain before the sound of rustling grass charged straight for Sen. Taken back by its speed, Sen leapt back narrowly to avoid the sickle-like claw that slashed through the grass. Now in the clearing that it created, Sen could get a clear view of the creature. Although it was shaped like any praying mantis he'd seen on his home planet, it clearly was far more deadly than that. With two razor-sharp forceps, the bug creature stood as tall as his waist. It clicked its mandibles as it smelled for its prey, desperate to tear through its prey. Tightly clutching his freshly sharpened alloy blade, Sen rushed into the opening. It's now or never. Seeing the intruder chasing him down, the mantis blindly swatted to keep Sen back. As shreds of grass flew up into the air, Sen narrowly sidestepped the mantis's claws. It's faster than I expected. Since it couldn't see me in the tree, I didn't expect it to be able to find me so quickly. Not wanting to get another chance to strike him, Sen ran in close and stabbed his alloy blade into its thorax. The mantis hissed and roared as it tried to stroke Sen. But Sen was too quick. Easily, he missed the mantis's blades and readied himself to ambush the mantis again. As Sen closed in on the creature, the mantis swiped its claws and smashed its claw into the top of Sen's helm. Sen could feel the vibration through his armor. To his delight, it was only the soft sensation of metal vibrating against metal. No matter what the mantis did, it wouldn't be able to hurt him. With a massive grin, Sen too this as his opportunity to strike at his opponent again. But as Sen slashed at the mantis, the beast pulled back and spread out its wings. An angry buzzing sound emitted from its back as it hurled itself into the air. Not wanting to be bothered by this nuisance anymore, the mantis was set on killing Sen. As it flew out of Sen's range, the mantis turned around before diving, bombing, straight for Sen. It let out a cry as it closed in on Sen. Raising its steel claws, it readied to slash at Sen, but its forceps struck at Sen's arm helplessly, only to find nothing to hit. Its prey was impenetrable. Now with the mantis in his grasp, Sen plunged his blade into the mantis's soft thorax and dragged the blade upward. In one single shriek, the mantis crumbled as Sen sliced right through it. Green guts spewed out of its body. Primitive lightning mantis killed. No beast soul gained. Sen couldn't help but smile as he shook off the green guts of the lightning mantids. It had been far easier than he had expected to take down such a creature that most of the Steel Armor Sanctuary had all feared. Even compared to his fight against the copper-toothed panther, Sen had come along nice since his battle in the mud. It was like something inside him had been unlocked, like he just needed the final puzzle piece to become unstoppable. Before he could think about his new power for much longer, Sen could hear rustling coming from the grass standing behind him. In the distance, he could hear the cry of another mantis, followed by another, and then another, all eager to get rid of the intruder in their land. Raising his alloy blade, Sen smiled. It looks like I have quite a few enemies to see just what this new power is capable of. Who made this map? I can't make heads or tails of it. Having far less success than Sen, Tobias West stared at his map, trying to make sense of the crudely drawn map that made little sense when entirely surrounded by grass. For the past hour, Tobias had been trampling through the tall grass, praying that he'd find some kind of sign of where he was. Unfortunately for him, the only thing that Tobias found was grass that looked exactly the same as all the other grass. In the distance, Tobias could hear the sound of metal colliding with metal. His face fell. Having gone on a hunting mission in the area a few days before, he was all too familiar with the sounds of mantids fighting. If Sarah Arn hadn't commanded him to be here, he would have been as far from this valley as possible. Struggling to pull back the tall grass, Tobias let out a long sigh. I know I should be near Zephyr Valley, but I can't make heads or tails of this map. Looking at his map, Tobias couldn't even tell which way he was looking. If only his wristcom worked in God's sanctuary, he would have been able to get out of this area with ease. Having heard the stories of Zephyr Valley, Tobias wanted to spend as little time as he had to. As desperate as he was for Sarah Arn's approval, getting killed wouldn't prove anything to her. The sound of metal grew louder as Tobias tried to forge ahead. How am I even getting closer? Tobias muttered under his breath as he turned away from the fighting. But before he could take a step forward, a mantis let out a long shriek before erupting out of the grass. Barreling straight for Tobias, the mantis narrowly missed as Tobias dived for the grass. As Tobias peeked out of the grass, he could see the cleanly sliced head of the mantis roll across the ground. What kind of creature did that? A flash of golden light dragged his attention toward a clearing. Curious, Tobias staggered forward only to be surprised by the sight before him. Dressed in golden armor, the man slashed left and right at the lightning mantids with ease. As their claws harmlessly bounced off the golden armor, the mantids let out a horrible hiss. Enraged, the mantids attempted to counter, but the man easily cut through them. Through the tall grass, Tobias watched in amazement. 1720? How many has he killed so far? Unaware of his audience, Sen beat down yet another mantis. He didn't have time to keep count. A rustle drew his attention to another group of mantids as they flapped their iron wings before plunging after Sen. Effortlessly, Sen planted his sword in between the soft sections of their flesh, easily taking them out. As the herd thinned out, Sen only felt himself getting faster and better at dismantling the mantids. This newfound strength was intoxicating. With every slice, Sen was amazed by the power that rippled through him. It felt like he could do this forever and never slow down. After stabbing his alloy blade through a mantis, Sen heard a twig snap behind him. Still racing from the fight, Sen swung his blade, only to find it pointing at a terrified man lurking in the grass. Surprised to see the man, Sen kept his blade pointed. What are you doing here? Horrified to see that he was on the other side of Sen's blade, Tobias threw his hands up in the air. Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt your hunt. That was incredible. How did you do that? Ignoring Tobias's question, Sen kept his blade raised. Tell me again, what are you doing here? My name is Tobias West, and I'm here on behalf of Sarah Arn and the Bullseyes. Ms. Arn requested that I scout out the area for beast's meat for our group, and this is perfect. Lowering his alloy knife, Sen didn't accept Tobias's handshake. Hearing Sarah Arn's name made Sen's muscles tense. Having expected to never run into anyone out here, Sen never thought he'd run into one of Sarah's men in Zephyr Valley. Curious of what Tobias was talking about, Sen looked at the slaughter before him. All across the trampled clearing of grass, green bug guts and blood mingled with the destroyed foliage. There wasn't a single living lightning mantis remaining. Sen had slayed the entire herd. While this was an incredible sight for Tobias, Sen couldn't be more disappointed. I got too excited. There isn't a single one that I can bring back with me. Even this meat is going to go to waste since I can't take all of it back with me. There's just too much of it. Following Sen's eyes to the massacre, Tobias offered him a small smile. Since someone can only eat so much beast flesh before it stops giving you Geno points, I would happily take some of it off your hands. Name your price and we'll go from there. Doing a quick count in his head, Sen realized he had slayed 43 mantids. That was far too many for Sen to cook and preserve to sell back at camp, let alone make it worth his time. Normally, rare primitive beast meat might sell for a lot, but it was usually on the seller to pay for the transportation. However, standing before him might be the best thing to make this trip worthwhile. Trying not to show his hand too early, Sen nodded. How about we do 1,000 per head? There's 43 here, but I'm going to give you a discount and call it an even 40,000. Tobias choked. 40,000? Is that too much? I'd be fine. Just like Sen had expected, Tobias wasn't looking at the whole situation, and instead just the deal dangling in front of him. Excited to get such a discount, the young man leapt at the opportunity. I'll pay you 50,000 if I'm the first person you call with whatever meat you find next. A small smile curled out of the corner of Sen's lips. Well, if it's not too much, I'll happily take 50,000 for them. Of course. My family is not only the owner of a major corporation in the Alliance, but they're also aristocrats. Sen's eyes widened. This guy is the son of aristocrats? In the Alliance, special titles were given to those who'd proven successful in God's sanctuary. Those who evolved or earned enough Geno points to go into the next level of God's sanctuary were called distinguished, and those who evolved with enough mutant Geno points were labeled as aristocrats. On the planet side, these people were highly regarded. They often received the finest things that the galaxy could provide, from better corporate positions to mandatory military service placement. Only evolvers who moved on to the second sanctuary with sacred blood Geno points were even higher in society. Immediately, Tobias pulled out his wallet and started pulling out 50,000 in levo. Is cash fine? I can also send it straight to your bank account if you'd prefer. Watching Tobias count the money, Sen's eyes almost bulged out of his head. Even if his parents were aristocrats, I can't believe he has that much money. He's hardly older than me, and he's treating 50,000 level like it's nothing more than pocket change. Handing Sen the money, Tobias let out a snort. Just make sure that I'm the only person you're calling if you have any more beast flesh to sell. And how do I call you? You can reach me at the Steel Armor Shelter in room 1046. So, how do I reach you if I need to find you, Mr. What is your name? My name's... Sen stopped himself. Despite having just made a deal with the man, Sen wasn't sure if he could trust him. After his father's passing, he knew better than anyone not to let secrets slip, especially in a place as lawless as God's sanctuary. Revealing too much about himself might jeopardize his mother or his sister. Now, with control of the conversation, Sen extended his hand. You can just call me Dollar. After all, that's what our arrangement is about. Dollar? Tobias asked as he scratched his head. I don't think I've heard that term used for money except in my history books. You really can't tell me your name or anything? Dollar is all you need to know. I'll reach out if I find anything you'd be interested in. Waving as Dollar walked away, Tobias let out a chuckle. It's nice meeting you, Dollar. Looking forward to working with you again in the future. As Dollar left, Tobias turned to the fallen mantids, and his face immediately fell. Damn it! How am I supposed to bring all of these back with me?